want to start this off by saying this is hard. This is really hard. I could get up here and I could talk to you about my awesome kids or sports, or I might even tell you a few things that I think my husband might have done wrong this morning. But to get up here and talk about myself, personal things, that's not easy at all. I'm pretty much a closed vault. If you know me, I don't really share a whole lot about myself personally. So bear with me because I'll probably fumble through some words, and I do have about 11 pages of notes here, and I hope to not have to read them, but I may look down to catch myself of where I am. Okay. So let me say again, I would really rather be doing anything else than talking about myself. But when Kevin Eubank asks, you find a way to say yes. So here we go. Oh, and let me say, I love my parents. They're good parents, but some of the stories I may tell may not paint them in the best light. But as I've grown up and I've become a parent myself, I understand that we're all just doing the best we can. Even the best parents have some bad moments. So with that being said, I'm just gonna tell you my story, really from start to where we are now. Probably gonna leave a bunch of stuff out, but bear with me. Good morning. All right. I was born to two people that really didn't have any business being together. I was the second daughter. They got married really young. My mom had just turned 17 and my dad had just turned 21. And my mom was the youngest of 10 kids. So she never said this, but in my mind, I'm thinking that she probably was just looking for a way out of the house. They were pretty not wealthy, 10 kids in a 2-bedroom house, and they farmed. But anyway, later in life, my mom told me that, probably shouldn't tell your kids this, that they were struggling in their marriage. So they thought a second kid would help it. And I'm sad to say, 2 years later, they divorced when I was 2. So that's really where my story begins. It was an ugly divorce, very messy. They kind of went down 2 different paths. My dad kind of chose anger and was really hard to live with at the time. And then my mom kind of fell into a deep depression. And I was really young, obviously, but they fought constantly. And I was just a ball of anxiety going back and forth and hearing a lot of arguments and seeing a lot of fights. And I had the shingles virus at age 4 from stress. And I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember laying in a bathtub of Epsom salt and just screaming because it hurt so bad. But I still have some scars from the shingles. I also kind of withdrew altogether. I stopped speaking. They labeled me selectively mute, which meant that I had the ability to speak, but I chose not to. And that kind of went on for several years. I just would not speak to anybody. I would nod my head and interact that way, but no words would come out of my mouth. So when I started school, they really didn't know what to do with me. They put me in speech class thinking that might help. I had straight A's and I was scoring really well on achievement tests, so they started testing me for gifted. But if you've ever been in a gifted test, you know that you have to speak to the interviewer, and I wouldn't. So they did that about 3 or 4 times until they finally just said enough of that. But I remember even having conversations on the phone with my dad. Like, he would call at night and he would ask me questions and I would nod my head, and you could hear my sister in the background saying, "She's nodding her head yes, Daddy," or "She's nodding her head no, Daddy." And I just did not talk. I would go on vacation with my grandparents and they would ask me what I wanted to eat. And I had my sister over here. She'd say, "She wants chicken nuggets, Mama." "Brandy, is that what you want?" "What do you want to drink?" "She wants a Sprite, Mama." "Is that what you want?" "Mm-hmm." So my sister was my spokesperson, and she really plays a lot into my testimony. Go on, we're in school. Again, I didn't really talk until about the age of 7. I started playing youth sports, softball and basketball, and it just came out of my shell a little bit. And I guess that's why I love sports so much today, because that just kind of woke me up a little bit. When I started to talk, I didn't really know how to have a conversation with people, obviously, because I hadn't really spoken in 7 years. But this is weird. But I would speak through song lyrics. Like, you would say something to me and that would click a song lyric in my head because I really love music. And then I would sing the song lyric back to you to start a conversation. And even to this day, you may not believe this, but it's really hard for me to participate in small talk with you. If you notice, I'll let you dominate the conversation and I'll just be a really good listener because it doesn't come natural to me. So when I get up here and I start talking or I teach, it's really a learned personality. I've learned how, like by watching my sister, I used to watch her, I'd observe her. She was really popular, outgoing, played a lot of sports, and I would watch how she interacted with people, and then I would just imitate it, and that's how I learned the personality I have today. But anyway, we fast forward. My mom, she worked third shift, and she slept a lot during the day, obviously. Like I said, she was in pretty deep depression, so I don't really have a memory of my mom that wasn't sleeping in a dark room until I was probably playing high school sports. But we pretty much lived with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She was our neighbor. And talk about a woman of God and gold. She raised 10 kids, most of her grandkids, and then some of her great-grandkids. She never had a license. She worked in the cafeteria when she got older after they stopped farming. And she would catch the bus with us in the morning and then leave the school and ride the bus home with us in the afternoon. But she was my best friend. She was my rock. She took care of me. She was a jokester. And every night before we'd go to bed, she would read out of a Bible story book to us. But then she would tell us a scary story before we went to bed. And I would go to sleep terrified. And she would sleep in the middle of my sister and myself. And my papa would sleep next to us in a twin bed. And I would sleep with a handful of her gown in my hand so that if somebody come to get me, it would wake her up as they tugged me. But my parents didn't attend church at this time. I would spend pretty much lived with my grandmother full time, and I'd go to my dad's every other weekend and every Wednesday night. But I would, on the Sundays that I was with my grandmother, I would go to church with her and my Uncle Travis. My Uncle Travis was the pastor at a little country church called Overton Hill right outside of Walnut, and it's where Miss Christy Hurt, she grew up, so she knows my family. But he wasn't your normal preacher. He didn't stand behind a pulpit, and I dare say he probably didn't have any notes, but he would get up there and he would just let it roll. I remember him jumping pews and high-stepping it out of the back of the church, screaming, "You better know that you know that you know." And I have a lot of fond memories of that church. They had some of the most powerful music and worship services. Had a little lady on the piano just banging it and singing, and had a guy named Butterbean playing the guitar and singing over here. And I really didn't know a lot. I knew the story of Jesus and God, but I really didn't know what it meant at that time. I would see people come to the altar and they'd just be sobbing. And I thought, maybe if I can cry, I can be like them. I can be closer to God. And at this time, I wasn't an emotional person. I would remember sitting in the pew and I was like, "Cry, Brandy, cry." And I could not cry. So I was like, man, maybe there's something wrong with me. But fast forward a year or two, my stepmom, she and my dad got married when I was 3, and she's been my stepmom ever since. And she's a super sweet lady. She's taken care of me. She has never shown any difference. I've always been her daughter. And she and I, we visited a few churches on the Sundays I was with her, and we started going to Farmington Baptist Church. And that would be my home church until Ron and I got married and I moved my membership to Gaston. But after we started going to Farmington, my sister, I remember, of course, I wanted to be just like her, imitate everything she did. She sat down with my parents and she had a conversation at the dinner table about her salvation. And the next Sunday, she walked down the aisle and talked to the preacher, and they said she was saved. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can be like my sister. So a few weeks later, marched myself down that aisle, told the preacher I wanted to be saved, and he knelt down with me, and we said a little prayer, and I was done. Had no idea what I was doing. No concept of a relationship with God. And I just followed her down the aisle, basically. Well, they baptized me, move on. I'm living a good life. My friends would call me the good little church girl. I was in church every time the doors opened. I walked a straight line, thought I was doing what I was supposed to because I was following the rules that a good little church girl is supposed to do. But I knew in my heart that something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. And nobody else could have told by my actions that I wasn't saved, but I knew I wasn't. I was lucky in the youth group to have some really great youth ministers that poured into me a lot of time and energy. And at this point, I think I was a junior in high school, and my youth minister, his name was Brother Daniel McGee. And he had turned down a job for the FBI to become a youth minister and go into the ministry. And this was actually his first placement, but he was amazing. He since has gone to live in New York City to be a church planner. But he took us down to the coast to, right after Katrina hit, to clean up and help rebuild some things. And one night we were sleeping in a gym floor at the church, and he had done a little Bible study. And he ended it by saying, I'm going to give you a slip of paper, and I want you to write something that you're really struggling with on this piece of paper, but don't put your name on it, and drop it in this jar, and it's something I'm going to pray over every day. I'm going to pull some out and pray over them at random times. And I had been really convicted. And I was a leader in the youth group, called on me to pray all the time, used me in examples. So it was hard for me, but I was really under conviction. And I wrote on that piece of paper, I said, I'm not sure that I'm truly saved. So I dropped it in, went on about my business, being convicted the whole time. And a few weeks later, we had a really powerful worship service on a Wednesday night. And I'm convicted the whole time. And after that service, I said, Brother Daniel, I need to talk to you. And I got him to the side and I said, I told him what I was dealing with. I'm not sure I'm truly saved. And so that Wednesday night, Farmington Baptist Church, in our painted black youth room, that's where I came to know the Lord. I accepted him as my Savior. I decided that that's when my change was going to happen. Everybody was going to know who I was living for. I was a child of God. And after he told me, he said, Brandy, there's no way for me to have known this, but I knew that paper was yours somehow, some way, and I've been praying for you every day since, that you would not be able to sleep until you made it right. So that's just one example of God puts people in your life. He does. You may not know it and you may not see the plan, but he puts people in your life that you need at certain times. All right, so you know the Baptist church. They've got some rules. I had to go in front of the church and be kind of kicked out of the church, voted on, and then re-accepted to the church as a saved person. And so they dunked me twice just to make sure. I've been baptized twice. I'm clean. Go to college. My first year at college, I was living here at the Northeast dorms, and I was working at Lonnie's Sporting Goods, where I saw Kevin Eubank's name before I knew Kevin Eubank all over the place on all the animals that he had put in there, which is crazy because I used to look, it was like I don't know, you had an elk up there, and I saw the name all the time, Kevin Eubank, and I didn't have a clue who you were until probably 10 years later. It's a small world. But I got the opportunity to go over spring break to a mission trip to Maine with Blue Mountain College. Miss Tracy, I don't remember her last name, but I know all of you probably do. Moser, yeah, and her husband. And she took a small group, and I didn't go there, so it was awesome they let me go. We went to Maine and we did a sports camp, a Christian sports camp for kids. And at this time in my life, I really didn't have a plan for the future. I had no idea what path God wanted me to go down. I'd actually been accepted to nursing school, and I hadn't accepted it yet because I didn't want to be a nurse. Didn't. Again, my sister's a nurse, trying to follow her, watch Grey's Anatomy, thought that's what I needed to be doing. Didn't, can't stand the smell of people's urine. So I don't want why I want to go into that field. But this camp helped me realize, hey, I'm pretty good with kids. And I really like the mission field. I like to go out and work with people who need it. Like I don't like to be stationary. So fast forward to the next summer. I had the opportunity to go on a mission trip with some of my family out of Brandon, Mississippi. They went with Salt and Light Ministries to Honduras. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. Went to Honduras. We were doing different vacation Bible schools throughout the villages. And in the afternoons, we would do dental and health checks. And if you've never had the opportunity to go to a third world country and work, it's life-changing. It really is. We think, that we have it bad sometimes in here, but we do not. And these people are way happier than we are, sitting in our nice houses. And anyway, moving on. It was a humbling trip for me. So the next summer I went back, and I was very close to staying there not permanently, but long-term as a missionary. I would be the liaison between mission groups and the villages as new groups came in. But God has a funny way of closing doors he doesn't want you to walk through. On this trip, I contracted a parasite, and I got really sick really fast. My fever shot up high. I just about lost the ability to walk. So they called my family, told them they needed to meet me at the airport. They put me on a plane, and from the plane from Honduras to Atlanta, I couldn't lift my head off the seat in front of me. And the stewardess just kept bringing me vomit bags every 5 minutes and telling me to be quiet because she didn't want them to quarantine the plane. So we made it to Atlanta. They had to give me a wheelchair because I couldn't walk anymore. They pushed me across the airport. I jumped on a plane in Memphis, and my dad met me at the gate. He carried me to the car. Ended up having to have 3 days of IVs and about 5 different antibiotics, and I lost 15 pounds in a 2-week span. And I was really sick. But I got over that, but I was scared. I was like, I'm not leaving this country again, ever again. So I didn't for a few years. I waited. My first year of teaching, 2012, I was at Corinth Elementary, 3rd grade, and full circle God moment. I had, there were 10 3rd grade classes, so no one had any idea about my past when they chose those roles. But God knew. He started working this plan into place when I was a little kid. And on that roll, I had a little girl named Sarah who was selectively mute. And nobody in that hallway could have understood what she was going through, but I did. And that was just a whole, God knows. He could be planted for 20 years, and this is how my path is supposed to go. But that first year of teaching, I taught with Amber. We started together. She was across the hall, but I made friends with the Lighthouse Foundation in Corinth, run by Brother Gary Capitas. Excellent man, does a great work with youth in Corinth. But they invited me to go on another mission trip with them, and I was like, I don't know about that. I about died the last time. But I decided to go, and this one was a little different. It wasn't a big group. It was literally 2 older ladies, me, and then 2 teenage girls. And so we went to the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and when we arrived, got off the plane at the Dominican, we met our translator named Raphael, great man. He said, he looked at me and he said, Brandy, no room on the bus. Do you want to ride a motorcycle? Looked around. Okay, yes I do. Because again, I get in trouble when I say yes a lot. But he jumped on another one with a stranger, and I jumped on the back of another one, and we rode across the Dominican until we made it to the place we were staying, close to the Haiti border. But we would cross into Haiti every day, and it's kind of scary if you've never done that. Armed guards, big guns. I don't know my guns, AK-47, machine gun, I have no idea. They're just big. But you had people beating on the gates trying to get across, and we would go across. They'd made us sit in the truck, but we would go into the mountain villages in Haiti and do Bible train or vacation Bible school. And I got the opportunity to go with a different group and put in a water filtration system for a village that never had clean, fresh water before. So that was a pretty cool experience, watching them taste it. They were all just as soon as it started bubbling up, they were just doing this, and that was humbling. But we slept on a concrete slab, no electricity, cooked over a fire, got up when the rooster crowed, and we bathed in the river. And I loved it. Loved every minute of it. But moving on, lost my place a few times, about 5 pages back. Came back. My second year teaching was difficult. It was really difficult. I had a class who needed a lot, and I was a rookie teacher and didn't really know how to give them what they needed. But during this time, getting to work at 6 a.m. every morning to try to get these kids what they needed, and I wasn't leaving until like 6 o'clock at night. My best friend, my grandmother, she passed away. I got a phone call at school that day and said that I needed to come home immediately. I went home, was with my family, and I literally held her hand as she took her last breath. And that was tough. If you never watched anybody die, that's tough. I had nightmares about it for a while, hearing her struggle to breathe, but that hit me hard. It hit me really hard. And I was dealing with some other stuff in my family, some choices that had really broken my heart, and had a really tough day of teaching one day. And I went home and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. This is not what God intended for me. There's no way that I should be coming home miserable every day. But I had a friend that the previous year had gone to be an au pair in Ireland. I was like, contacted her, got the information, went online, I filled out a website. I filled out a profile on a website. And overnight, I had 50 different requests saying, yes, come be our au pair, come live with us. So I looked through, picked the family I thought was the best fit for me. I turned in my letter of resignation, finished out the year, got an international driver's license, and jumped on a plane to France for 9 months to be an au pair. I lived with 2 former Olympic figure skaters for France. They had 2 daughters. They were also current rollerblading champions, national champions, and the girl, or the lady, was also a former water skiing champion. So very athletic people. I was like, yes, this is where I need to be. This is my fit. And so I would work with their kids, teach them English during the week. And on the weekends, I would jump on a plane with my other American au pair friends, and we would just travel around Europe. And I was just living the good life, living it up. And most people thought, hey, she's going on this grand adventure. I'm jealous. But I wasn't. I was running away. I was having a tough time at home, and I couldn't deal with it. And I was just, let me roll. So finished that out. I came back home in January of 2015. And like I said, God has a funny way of throwing people in your life. I met Ryan that June 6th of 2015. And it just so happened to be the anniversary of my grandparents, who were married for 65 years. So I thought that was really cool. The day we met. We met at a co-ed softball tournament. Let me just say, his team did not win. My team did. But I was playing third base, and if you know Ryan, he can fly. He can really fly. He rounded third base, and I didn't know him, and I knew most everybody there. He rounded third, went past me, and I said, hey, the first words I ever spoke to him, I'm going to need you to slow down. And he kind of turned around mid-run and grinned at me, and that was it. I had no goals to be married, ever. I had no goals to have any children, ever. I really liked being able to go here, there, and jump on a plane whenever I wanted to, but God had a different plan. Ryan was persistent, and we were engaged by the next March and married by the next July. It was a difficult first year, trying to learn how to navigate someone's wants and needs and feelings and just cohabitate. And then at the same time I was doing that, I was trying to learn how to be a bonus mom to Noah, who was just turned 6 at the time. And that was really hard. If you've ever had to be a bonus parent or step parent, that's probably the most difficult thing I've had to learn how to do. Because I'm a little bit of a control freak, if you didn't know me. And when you are co-parenting a child, that's a really delicate situation. And you don't always get to be in control. And your feelings are going to get hurt. And the decisions you want to make are not the ones that are always made. And God really had to beat me over the head with a stick in this situation and had to humble myself. And he's like, it's not about you, Brandy. It's not about you, Brandy. And I really had to learn that it really wasn't about me. It was about what was best for Noah. And although we don't always get it right, we do try. But moving on to the very next year, July 2017, a year after we got married, found out we were pregnant. I was really excited. Made a doctor's appointment right away. We were able to hear the heartbeat and see the sonogram, and the doctor said, you got a really strong heartbeat, everything looks good. So I went on my business, started making plans, picking out names, ordering baby books, went back just before 12 weeks to do the blood test and find out the baby's gender. And out of all the baby doctor appointments I've had to go to, because I've got a lot of kids, I I've never let anybody go with me besides Ryan. But this particular appointment, my sister went, because God knew before I did. We went in to have the sonogram, and it was really quiet. The sonographer wasn't saying much. And again, first pregnancy, I don't really know the protocol. Ryan's cracking jokes like he does in awkward situations. And she said, the sonographer said, let me go get the doctor. And looked at my sister, and I could tell on her face immediately. I knew that something wasn't right. So I started crying. Ryan's just like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. And I'm crying because he doesn't know. And doctor came in, and I couldn't make eye contact with her because I knew she was gonna tell me something I didn't want to hear. And she put her hand on me and she said, "Sweet girl," this is Dr. Cassie Hill, she's precious. "Looks like we no longer have a heartbeat." And I lost it. I was hysterical. I couldn't put my clothes back on. And God knew I was going to be like that. He had a plan. My sister, she literally put all my clothes back on. She started making phone calls because I wasn't able to. So he put her there for that reason. I know it. And so they start moving us to a different room, more private room. God put another sweet soul in my path. I didn't know who it was at the time. She didn't know me, but she literally wrapped her arms around me, and she let me sob on her shoulder, and she just started praying over me. And a few years later, I found out that was Miss Melody Woodruff, Miss Lacey Nichols' mom, who, you don't know her, she's precious. So I took the loss really, really hard. Got home, we had a package on the doorstep, and it was the baby book that I ordered. So Ron saw me having a panic attack, and he hid that book, and he didn't bring it back out until a few months later in January, after I've gone through the whole motions. What if I'm not able to have kids? What's wrong with me? I felt like a failure, and I'm sure a lot of you do, but I don't want to sound conceited when I say this. I'm not used to failing at things. I'm used to, I can work as hard as possible to do what I need to do, or I can fix this situation and change. But in this moment, there was nothing I could do. There was nothing. So next January, we found out that Sweet Baylor Bell was on her way. And it was another difficult season for us. Ron's company had closed down. And we had sold our house because we wanted to move back to Boonville. We were currently living with my sister in Tennessee until we could find a house. So we were basically jobless, homeless, with a baby on the way. Again, control freak. I'm trying to fix everything, but I had to tell myself let go and let God, because 3 weeks before our due date, we closed on our house on Thursday night in Boonville. Ryan took off the next day to move our stuff. I had a pretty rough day at school. About lunchtime, I looked down and my feet were huge. So I went to talk to the nurse. She took my blood pressure and she said, "It's elevated. You need to call your doctor." So I called my doctor and she said, "Yes, come in immediately. Let's monitor you. Let's see what's going on." Didn't have anything planned. No house, no nursery, no car seat, no bag packed. Ron came and picked me up. We went to the doctor's office, and the doctor came in after monitoring me, and she said, "Looks like we're going to have a baby this weekend." And I freaked out again. I was like, "No, you're wrong. We're not having a baby this weekend. It's 3 weeks, October the 19th. We're having that baby October 19th. She said, "No, ma'am, you're going to have it this weekend in September." So went through that. They induced my labor the next day. 12 hours of labor, no dilation, 2 failed epidurals. Blood pressure bottomed out twice. I was on oxygen. Came in, another doctor, another bad news of something that wasn't in my plan. He said C-section, which I did not want, but God's plan. We had a C-section. I was asleep, didn't get to hear the cry, hold the baby for the first time, anything like that. But after I was in recovery and they laid Baylor Bell on my chest, something just clicked into place. I knew at that moment that this is what I was meant for. I was meant to be a mom. This child was now my mission field. And so we had some really great friends during this time. They Without us knowing, Miss Mary Ann Hawley and Mr. Roy and Colin Carter and Alicia Carter's wife went, and our friend Todd Talley went, without us knowing, to my sister's house, loaded all our furniture up, moved it into our new house, brought my car home because I had left out school without a car, without a wallet, without keys. And amazing people, again, in a time of need. Precious. Fast forward 2 years later, right before Christmas, we brought home Bennett. Y'all all know Bennett. I knew right away it was easy pregnancy, easy delivery. I was like, yes, time for easy, smooth sailing. I knew right away something wasn't right with Bennett. He would projectile vomit, what you managed to get down. He couldn't latch on, couldn't nurse, no bottle, no passy. Doctor just kept saying, acid reflux. Let's put him on this acid reflux medicine or this acid reflux medicine. And Mama knows. I would literally hold him all night. I would not put him down because I was afraid if I put him down, he was going to choke to death in his sleep because you could literally hear him gasping for breath sometimes. So I held him and held him to the point he developed a flat spot on his head. And then he had to have a helmet and it was a whole thing. And I just felt like a failure as a mom. But a doctor finally listened to me. He said, let's go to Le Bonheur. Let's go see what's going on. So we went and they did a swallow test and he obviously failed it immediately. They could see that he was aspirating, which was causing the vomiting and the choking and the throwing up. But they put us on thickened liquid. Y'all remember him here. It was molasses that he had to drink. But they put us with a feeding therapist and he learned how to drink on his own and eat in a way that he wouldn't get choked. And then we were able to have surgery at about 6 months old. They went in and they didn't really know what they were going to find. It was kind of an exploratory surgery. But they found that he was lip-tied, tongue-tied, and he had a laryngeal, don't know if I'm saying that right, cleft in his throat. So they repaired the lip and the tongue, and they put a stitch in his throat to help slow the liquid or anything going in so it wouldn't go into his lungs. And you see Bennett running around. He bloomed immediately. He took off, started gaining weight. He was no longer vomiting every time he ate anything. He still chokes to this day a little bit and aspirates some, but not to the point of how it was. And you can watch him up there singing. You can look back at the video. And when he talks or sings so fast, he can't swallow fast enough, so you just see drool leaking down his face. But we had a lot of people that helped us during that time. We were here. I remember some people came and prayed with me at the altar when I was just literally crying out to God, like, please just let me trade places with him. Save my baby, help my baby, and had a lot of things. I'm going to hurry. It was a really dark time for me. And again, I had to trust God because it's not something I could fix, something that I had to let him do. Fast forward 13 months later, found out I was pregnant again. Had to wrap my head around that. I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. Finally got to the point where I'm like, okay, I got this. I can handle it. We're gonna rock it. 8 weeks into the pregnancy, started miscarrying. And I was like, God, it took me 3 weeks to get on board with this. And then I got on board with it. And now you're taking it away from me. So that was another moment, like, my plan, Brandy, my plan. Ryan, during this time, Ryan encouraged me to go to a Pray and Press On at Ashley Thompson's house. And I'm more of the suffer in silence type. You're probably not ever going to know I'm going through anything, but God puts people in your path that you need. And I couldn't hide it. I was having some really intense cramps after the meeting, and I was just kind of sitting in the kitchen floor of Ashley Thompson's house. And I think Olivia was there and Marianne Runner. And of course, Ashley. Miss Emily was there. I don't know if she was still there that late, but I know she was there. And Olivia, who I've known for a while, like she was in my sister's wedding, she kind of just drug it out of me. And these women just kind of surrounded me and put their hands on me, and they started praying over me and for me. And I was just kind of at peace with it. Like, okay, let's just keep on trucking. This is God's plan. So a year later, we brought home baby Banks. And then the chaos of the Howell household ensued, and it's still pretty chaotic to this day. But I say all that to say, motherhood has made me a better Christian. It has. Because I understand Jesus' sacrifice a little more intensely than I did when I was only living for myself. My head on most days, my head's on a swivel, and I feel like I'm a lunatic, but I really think that God made me to be a mother, if that makes sense. So through all this, Gaston has been a staple in our life. Ryan, of course, grew up here. He wanted to be back here. And I, who came from a pretty all over the place childhood, wanted my kids to be a part of a community who could nurture them and grow them and love them. And this church and this class have been an answered prayer for me. I know that you guys love my family and my kids, and I know you will show up when they need you, because we're a family, and that's what families do. And so I thank you for that. I'm going to close with one thing I want to share. My family, again, is facing a really difficult time right now, and it's not something I'm ready to speak on publicly. I know some of you probably already know, and you're just waiting on me to acknowledge, but I'm not there yet. But I would appreciate your prayers. Some days it's hard for me to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward to be Mama and Miss Howell. But I serve a mighty God that knows the plan even when I don't. And even though I want to do everything in my power to fix what's going on right now, God doesn't need me to do that. He needs me to trust Him and let Him carry out what He has planned. So thank you for letting me speak. I love you all. And I want to end with this verse that I repeat in my head that you know very well. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Thank you.